Добрый день, уважаемые коллеги, гости Казанского форума. Рады приветствовать вас на сессии.
Good afternoon. I'm glad to greet you here at this session, Islamic Neobanking World Practice. And it conjugates the system of the Islamic finance and the modern technologies. We're going to discuss various aspects of this Islamic banking, Shariat principles, investment opportunities, and other issues. We have a unique symbiosis, the Russian banks, CIS banks, and our foreign guests, experts in the Islamic neobanking. The key task of our session is to acquire the knowledge on the global practices and identify some new opportunities. I'm a moderator of this session, Aida Zaripova, Bank Tochka, bank for legal entities, businesses, and entrepreneurs. And I would like to invite the guests from the United Arab Emirates. That's Mufti Ismail Desai, the General Director Global of Islamic Financial Services, GIFC, and he is the chairman and founder of the Russian Council for Islamic Finance, RIFC. Dear colleagues, we may start launching this particular presentation.
Dear guests, we're establishing a link with the United Arab Emirates for our online speaker, and we're giving the floor to Abdul Varis from the Unified Stock Exchange Broker. Good afternoon, good friends. Unexpectedly, you start with me. Probably as a company from Tatarstan, I will be the first one to speak today. Thank you for your invitation to participate in this panel. Can I have the clicker for the presentation so that I can provide more details about our company? I will start with our concerns, with our problems, and then I will try to discuss some of the solutions that are available, solutions that are proposed by our colleagues outside of the Russian Federation, like in Europe or in Asia. If there is no clicker, I will discuss without slides. This year we celebrate the 5th year since the time when our Kazakhstan investment company started to operate with all relevant licenses. Last year we joined the register for partnership financing, and well, before we started to move towards Islamic banking and neo-banking and Islamic finance in general, well, I'd like to say that I was interested in this agenda long ago, but Before starting business in this sector, I talked to a variety of advisors in this country. There are excellent people, but they may lack some competences which are required. Therefore, I had to learn myself to look into the Islamic banking sector, and is it possible to adopt these rules. Last year we joined the register for partnership financing and set up the first halal broker account. I don't know whether there are any people familiar with it in this room, but we are of the opinion that halal finance industry should become more transparent from the regulatory perspective. Not all people may know, but there are IOFI standards, and many companies, international companies, obtain IOFI certificate, and they have advisors who are familiar with the Sharia laws and the English law, and I see a problem which I talked about before. There are no competent specialists, skilled specialists, and knowledgeable specialists who can provide proper advice for business processes in a company. It's the key issue. People, the key issue is people. The second concern in this area and for Islamic banking in general is that businesses are very cautious. I understand their concerns. I'm also a founder of an IT company, Uniform Bank and Technologies, which is a resident of Innopolis here in Tatarstan. And well, we need software to transform a conventional bank into an Islamic one. We try to provide an IT solution which will make business to find their way in such foggy environment. The Islamic finance industry, and we discussed it in Grozny several weeks ago, it's at inception stage, and therefore people should not compete between each other, but should rather cooperate to look into problematic areas. And I'm sure that our regulators from the Central Bank of Russia are present here, and they will also participate in this process. In our IT company, we produce software which allows to transform a conventional bank into an Islamic bank. There are plenty of banks who would like to move into this area, but you need to look at all pros and cons. There are things that may make you doubtful. My mission in this area is a sort of philanthropy. I understand that in the next few years I will not be able to earn millions and billions in this area, but it's just business. I treat it as business. I think that people who create software should be properly paid and move in this area. And for those businesses who want to explore this area, I want to provide whatever I can so that they, in a few months' time or in a few years' time, will find it easier to establish business presence in the Islamic finance industry. If you look at global practice and if you look at our current situation, you will see that in European countries, Islamic banking is developing very rapidly, and there are plenty of fintech projects which are growing rapidly. thanks to massive investment. We talked to people from UK recently, Basic Invest. They are gradually started to move from the investment business into the neobanking segment. We are moving towards the same target in Russia, but you should understand that the market in UK, their market is much larger, and they have some must-have institutions which provided some groundwork for small-size and medium-sized fintech companies to create some neo-banking entities. If we look at European jurisdictions, specifically at UK, in Russia, you should remember that people generally lack financial literacy, and for banking to develop, we as IT, as an investment company, create a variety of products, and muftiyats will say either it's halal or haram, and you should approach each of them to obtain a certificate whether it's halal or haram, and or should you look only for IOFI standard and forgetting about the muftiyats? It's a political issue. And where the market is moving, and what is the outlook for this market? If our institutional companies, I mean some government institutions or government-owned institutions, should create certain infrastructure for small-size neo-banking entities. As for financial literacy, we may create a variety of products, but our consumers will not be able to understand them. Our consumers do not even understand conventional financial products. As for, let's say, neo-banking products, well, it's very difficult. It's even more difficult for our people to understand that. We sent a variety of requests to our religious institutions in this republic and other republics just on Friday during the prayer. Just give your audience some idea about Murabahat or Moyara, so that people understand at least what sort of products is in the market. We may mention UK practice, Malaysia and United Emirates as long as we want. But people in these three countries are more financially literate. Their consumers understand what are Islamic finance products. And Islamic banking developed very rapidly in Malaysia. We're starting on the foundation of conventional financing, and we're trying to introduce some innovations, but will not succeed before we'll be able to regularly cooperate with major financial institutions, which will help to create infrastructure for neobanking to emerge. Neobank is not a conventional bank, it's digital banking, which allows to take care of the needs of different consumers without wasting much money on establishing a massive infrastructure and without major operating costs. I hope that such concerns that I've discussed with you, it is not just pure thinking. It reflects the experience that we've accumulated during the last 6 months, and I will be glad to further discuss this agenda with any people who want to work in this industry so that we exchange some ideas or cooperate to create something new. Thank you. Thank you, Alba Boris. And the next question is, indeed, there are many banks now. Some of them, neobanks, offer a variety of products and describe these products as Islamic products. From the regulatory perspective, who in Russia, I understand that in the Gulf countries they have their own regulators who can give permission and they say that's a halal service. In Russia, in European, who is this regulator? You mentioned that there's an interesting matter. Look, the situation is like that. In my opinion, regulator is the central bank. Unfortunately, there are a lot of muftiyas, religious establishments, try to create some additional regulatory framework for financial institutions. But frankly speaking, we have enough requests and demands received from the central bank. And, cash flow of all companies is under strict control. And in Russia, we have a situation. You come to one muftiyat. Is everything halal with us? They say, okay, let's make some corrections. I give you a certificate, and the saddest thing that if we move to another region and we talk to another specialist, I'm not saying that when they give certificates for operations in food industry or restaurant business. In my opinion, the financial sector is much more sophisticated from the perspective of regulation. If you go to a different region, they tell you, no, we have some doubts about that. And I raised this issue on many occasions. I cannot say who is the regulator here. I need an approval from the religious department of the Republic of Tatarstan, but if you go to another republic, they say, well, no, your proposal stirs suspicion. I will not give any names. Actually, some of the companies do not interact with any muftiyats, and they obtain halal certificate from consultancies located either in the Emirates or in the Southeast Asia. But it may be a problem because the certificates which were issued by this specialists, and these specialists may not be aware of their national specifics of Russian taxation and Russia's legal framework. And we have a situation where the bank thinks it's halal, but it appears not to be halal under the Russian legislation. I find it difficult to give you an answer. Either you are halal for a foreign specialist, either you go to each muftiyat in this country and ask them to check whether everything's halal with you. And indeed, you have a regulator in each region. Thank you for this answer. Sure.
Thank you for commenting, because I come from GCC, from UAE, from Egypt, from different jurisdiction, and I think you mentioned what's happening other places. The norm, I've been in Islamic banking for more than 20 years. Actually, there always, the Sharia board of your bank or your company within your, area are the one really responsible for what you are doing. There is some countries, like in UAE, for example, and Oman only. These two countries, they have their own Sharia board on the central bank level. But those guys, they set only the guidelines in a broader level, not in details. So really, at the end of the day, you take your permission from the Sharia board of your bank, your entity, which they are going, this is where you take, not from the Mufti or from, the Islamic part, which is even in UAE, for example, and Saudi, they don't involve in Islamic finance and muamalat. So your bank Sharia committee with the central bank higher Sharia committee, they agree in what products are offered, and only the high level guidelines only. Where you should really, at the end of the day, your process, your detailed process of the product itself has to be vetted and approved by the Sharia board, which is taking care of your entity. And this is a practice which we're having in UAE, in Saudi, I think Malaysia is the same. We have these two, as I said, but the central bank is a higher level only, and only higher guidelines only. Thank you.
Add a very important point here. I think this is a great point that you have raised. Thank you for the moderator. Over the last 20 years, I have been blessed actually in doing Islamic finance groundbreaking projects. From emerging markets like the UK, all the way to the Philippines, and in many other regions of the world. This is a very common problem that we are talking about here, and Russia is no exception. Nowhere there will be a ready-made, a readily available talent or expertise available when it comes to Sharia, when it comes to approval. Hence, there is this international standard-setting body called AOFI, AAOIFI, Accounting and Auditing Organization for Islamic Financial Institutions. It's based in Bahrain, and this institution is actually developing and issuing industry standards for Sharia, for accounting, for governance, and ethics of Islamic finance, right? This is the body that is a consensus of all the Muslim scholars, or the majority of the Muslim scholars from around the world, giving their opinions, from different schools of thought, from different schools of jurisprudence, and representing different regions as well. And the role of this body is actually providing guidance to the entire industry, and that includes very advanced markets like Malaysia or UAE or Bahrain, etc., or emerging markets like Russia and the others as well. So what I think needs to be done here, and the good thing is that this body has actually translated the standards. Primarily they are issued in Arabic and English, but now they have issued actually in many other languages as well, including Russian. So IOFI standards are available in Russian language, and they are for the entire industry. And this is the guidance that shall be taken by the regulators, by the market players, and also by those people, the Sharia scholars, the local Sharia scholars who are providing guidance and who are providing the approvals of the fatwas or the Sharia approval. So this is very important, and I happen to be also very heavily involved with IOFI. Over the last 9 years, I have been involved in the standard setting process, and we can talk about more if there is any help required in this sense. But I think this is one of the key take-home messages from today's discussion, that please look at IOFI standards. They are very helpful in setting up the industry in any new market. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. It's a really important topic because IOFI is an international organization, and all of the standards or the finance regulations. And I think in the future, the Central Bank of Russia and IOFI will take the mutual agreement. Dear guests, if you have any questions, please, you are free to ask our guests. Дорогие гости, если у вас есть какие-то вопросы, вы можете сейчас...
You may ask your questions now. Two brief questions, What is the first halal broker account? What's the difference between it and a conventional broker account? And what was your aim of being put on the register? How you did it? If the federal law does not mention the broker transactions that you mention? It's a good question. For your first question, a classical broker account, you understand that from the Sharia standard, well, you cannot make short sales, you cannot buy shares of banks, and of shares of companies engaged in other prohibited activities, no matter whether they are offered at the stock exchange or not. In terms of halal approval and IOFI, it is also margin trading is also prohibited. Using the leverage and also the trading in futures and options is prohibited. We have full-scale methods guidance. It was sent to the religious department of the Muslims. We included our screening model. From the technical perspective, we restricted some of the transactions which do not comply with Sharia standard. We prohibit such transactions. At the end of the day, our user has a halal broker account. Marginal trading is also prohibited. And optional and futures transactions are also prohibited. And the securities which such a user acquires, we do not connect it to the overnight facilities. You have your securities, they stay on your account and do not move. As for asking me why we joined the register, it is one of the areas of our activities from the brokerage perspective. The key, our core area, and I pride myself on that we've put together the strongest team in Islamic banking, who have experience in Islamic banking both in Russia and abroad. Indeed, as Mr. Aksakov said, the main purpose of the bill, which was signed last year, raising investment from abroad. And we know only too well that MENA region and the nation bonds are prohibited. In those markets, they use sukuk, which are similar to the bonds. In this area, we try to talk to interesting issues so that we can launch in our market a new Islamic product so that any individual or any legal entity can start a brokerage account and acquire this instrument. For business, business needs cheap money and market rates and partnership principle. The third area which we look, we have high net worth clients and they invite us to engage in trust management, but so far we have not entered this area. Trust management in Islamic banking, that is halal shares. After we communicated with some muftiyats and scholars, and they said, we will not approve that you are halal. We do not want to stir any conflict, but globally our objective is issuance of sukuk so that business can raise funds, cheaper funds for their business, cheaper funds from abroad. We're members of the Moscow Stock Exchange. Moscow Stock Exchange is interested in launching new instruments on its floor. We had some very productive meetings in Malaysia and in MENA region. There are institutional investors there who want to obtain Russian debt instruments, notwithstanding any sanctions. Our global task to raise major funding for major and mid-sized companies in accordance with Sharia laws. Thank you for your comments.
Ahmed Farooq Raza, founder and CEO of the group and chairman of the Management and Ethics Board in the Organization of Accounting and auditing control of financial institution. Господин Мухаммед Фарук Раза, основатель и генеральный директор группы, председатель правления по управлению и этике в организации бухгалтерского и аудиторского контроля финансовых институтов.
Thank you. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. I'm very glad to be in Kazan, back after a few years now. I've been coming here regularly, for some time. Then there was a break for certain reasons, and now, I'm back here today. So it's, a very short presentation about the challenges that the Islamic neobanks are facing in, today's fast-changing world, the financial markets, and we will talk also about a few solutions that may be applied as well. These are, the things, this is the outline that we will go through. So I will start with, first of all, neobanking. So if I may ask, how many people actually have an account with a neobank, regardless of Islamic or conventional, but just a neobank? Okay, less than 10 in the audience plus the panelists. Okay, how many people actually know what a neobank is? Okay, good. Less than half a dozen.
I hope so. I never know.
Right. So first thing is, let's try to establish what's meant by a neobank, and then we will look into the specific challenges that Islamic neobanks will be facing. So the traditional banks, as we know, they will have brick and mortar, branch locations. In Russia, we are very impressed, actually, the foreigners, that the banks are open. Some of the banks are open 7 days a week, from 10 in the morning till 10 in the evening. This is very rare, by the way. Most of the countries, they have very little banking hours, and you have to go to the branch to do any, operation that you want, most of the time. Then some of these banks, they are actually now having, most of them, they have online banking, presence as well. So they will have their websites, transactional websites, and then they will also have the banking applications as well. But we are still in traditional banks, right? So the likes of Sberbank, for example, or other major banks in the world, they all fall into the same category. Then we start having a new breed of banks. And what are they? These are, first of all, only online banking and only through smart applications that we can use on our electronic devices, phones, tablets, etc. And the neobanks, what's important also in them is actually that 100% of these neobanks are actually startups. So I'm not aware of any neobank that has existed for 50 years or 100 years. It doesn't exist. So they will be all new, and they will be startups. Now, this is very important, because when I say startup, it comes with a package. It comes with a package of many opportunities, but many limitations as well, right? And we will look into that. And then, of course, none of these neobanks will actually have any brick or mortar location. So they do not have any branches. They do not have any offices or anywhere you can go and you can interact with a human being. So you might be able to interact with a human being, but that will be using remote channels like chat, like maybe maximum call, but nothing else. So you have to do your operations purely through online banking and digital apps. Now, there is an overlap between both of them, and this is what we call digital banks. And these digital banks can be actually a combination of both, and usually what's happening is that these are the offshoots of the traditional banks or the legacy banks. So the brick and mortar banks, they have actually launched new brands or new subsidiaries that are offering almost neobank facilities through digital applications. So there are actually 3 different types of banks that we are talking about here. So when I say Islamic neobank, that will be more in this space, which is like, the orange and the dark blue, where we are talking only about the banks that do not have any branches, that are all startups, and that are, operating purely online and in digital, way. Some of these banks can be also actually supported by, the traditional banks. So, for example, they may have a stake in that, they may have a shareholding, they may even give them a license to operate as a service. So You must have heard of BaaS, or banking as a service. This is a new term and a new kind of license that has been introduced in many jurisdictions. I'm not sure about Russia, but these licenses, BaaS license, banking as a service, allows the fintechs or the new banks to leverage actually on the existing banks license of traditional banks, but without having their own capital, they can actually offer the services through using their applications. So what's happening here is that setting up an Islamic bank is always a challenge, and I can see some people here from the region who have had this challenge for a few years on their hands. And the reason is that a big capital is required and a big infrastructure is required, and that's very costly and it has many implications. So with the introduction of Neobank, now we are actually bypassing the complexities and costs that are associated traditionally with the banks, and especially launching Islamic banks in new markets. So like Russia, for example, there was in the last panel, there was a lot of discussion about Uzbekistan and other countries in the region. These are relatively new markets. This is actually a very good opportunity to launch Islamic banking through new banks, because the requirements, the entry barriers are much lower. And it makes Islamic banking more accessible, and it aligns more with the original Islamic bank, Islamic finance objectives and impact as well. So, as I said, there are distinctive challenges. So I'm not going to go into the details right now. I'll go through them one by one. So there are regulatory challenges. There are operational challenges. There are expertise gap in the human resources. We just discussed about the issue with the certification, the Sharia approvals, etc., and so on. Then also the consumer trust and market reach, and we'll talk about more about these things. So let me go into the details one by one. So the first and the foremost, as I said, was actually the regulatory challenges. And what do we mean by that? Most of the jurisdictions right now are actually not fully equipped from a regulatory point of view to accommodate and to facilitate the operations of neobanks, regardless of Islamic or conventional. This is the case in the majority of the countries. Then when it comes to Islamic neobanks, because it comes with some additional requirements, usually the jurisdictions will not be prepared at all for them. So meaning that even if you put an application, you submit an application to the regulator today in a certain jurisdiction for setting up a new Islamic neobank, you might have a difficulty because the regulator may not be adequately equipped with that. Then also, sometimes these operations are multi-jurisdictional. So in order to scale up, they will try to launch in Uzbekistan and then also in Russia and then also maybe in Kazakhstan. And that will increase more the complexity because they have to deal with certain, actually multiple jurisdictions. So there are actually a lot of issues that, arise from there. The second issue is the difference in the interpretation of Sharia. Now, this is a very common challenge. This is not specific to Islamic Neobank. I think my fellow panelist has already mentioned this in quite detail. And you will have different scholars of different backgrounds, and they will have their own opinions and so on and so forth. And this, of course, this is why I emphasized earlier that following and adopting and following and implementing IOFI standards is very important, because then all of the industry players will be working along the same lines. So it becomes much easier for people, it becomes much easier for regulator, and it becomes much easier for the consumer as well to understand what's going on, because in some jurisdictions we have seen that a bank has actually approved a product, launched a product, and then some of the scholars of other banks or even from the civil society, they will start objecting on the Sharia compliance of that product. And this is not good for consumer, because they will get confused and they will become reluctant. They will hesitate in taking up those products. So we have to maintain this issue as well, and this is actually a big problem. Then the next one is actually this perception that Sharia compliance is just a review of product documentation. So you have a product agreement, you get the approval from the Mufti, and that's it, your Sharia compliance is sorted. No, it's not. Unfortunately, it's not, because Sharia compliance is a much more, a wider issue that needs to be managed very carefully, during the whole process of, the transaction, pre-transaction, post-transaction, etc., and so on. So it actually, when there is, this perception that it's only receiving an approval from the Mufti or from the Sharia board, that will mean that there will be a higher risk of non-compliance, which may cause reputational risks. And these reputational risks are actually much more in neobanks than, traditional banks. Then the next one will be rapid business expansion versus compliance. Now, the implication of this is that because these neobanks, they do not have this limitation of having a branch network. So when the app opens, they start offering their services in a new market, for example, where there is a high demand like Uzbekistan. We said there may be a sudden actually influx of customers, and they will have this opportunity where they can grow their business and they can go fast, but then they are not actually equipped for that scaling up. So the resources that they have, they are not adequate, and hence the adherence to Sharia actually becomes a challenge for them, and that again initiates the risk of non-compliance, and that can also cause the reputational damage. It can also impede the growth of the neobank as well. So they have the opportunity, but then they are in this dilemma whether to follow the growth trend and make a compromise or accept a compromise at least on the Sharia side, or they actually adhere to Sharia strictly, but then they compromise on their growth. So there is always this dilemma for the neobanks. Then also a very common problem. The management of the neobanks usually comes from traditional banks. They come with a certain mindset which is actually geared towards managing those traditional banks. When they come to neobanks, they start implementing the decisions in the same way and start operating in the same way, which is actually not good. It creates a conflict of interest, and the decision making is not really the most effective, and it creates also the issues of efficiency and productivity as well. Then there is a resource constraint, and that is not only human resources, but even financial resources. And I mentioned earlier that the majority of the neobanks, they will be startups. So obviously, like the traditional banks that have been there for ages, who have actually very, very deep pockets, they have very financially strong shareholders. The startups will be usually operating on a very shoestring budget, where they will be always looking for new capital. They are facing many challenges from the investors, etc., and so on. So capital is also, some financial resources are also limited for them. So they have this constraint, plus they have the human resource constraint, which is general to everyone operating in the Islamic banking world. So all these things, they will put limitations on them. And then also the expectations versus the reality of Sharia board rule. So again, one of my fellow panelists, he mentioned having a Sharia board and so on. So first thing is, having a Sharia board in new jurisdiction like Russia is not an easy thing to do. The second thing is, by virtue of having a Sharia board, it actually by no means mean that you have resolved all your Sharia governance problems, because the role of the Sharia board is limited, and that has to be well understood, and it has to be well incorporated within the structure of the bank. So there is also an expectation that the Sharia board will resolve all the issues. No, it won't. So you have to have a realistic expectation as well. And then obviously we already mentioned about the expertise of the Sharia board, which can be also very limited in new jurisdictions. Then the Sharia decision making also, as I said, is always difficult even in general traditional Islamic banking. But when it comes to neobanks, it again becomes a much bigger challenge, because of lack of human intervention within the processes, because the majority of the neobanks will be operating mainly on the basis of technology. Everything will be automated. They will be using these new technologies, which may be the blockchain, it could be AI, it could be anything. Now we have this additional burden of making sure that not only the product documentation, but also the process and everything, all the steps that are actually being used in the transaction are also compliant with, the Sharia requirements. And where will the Sharia requirements come from? They shall in principle come from IOFI standards, right? But then they need to be embedded into everything, into the processes, etc. So not only the, the product itself and the processes, but even the technology needs to be able to actually manage that. And then the final one is the stakeholder confidence. So as I said, they will have, neobanks will have the challenges of raising funds. They will also have this issue. Okay, so let me tell you, even in general, in traditional Islamic banking, the banks, they always have this problem where people are questioning, their Islamicity, if you want, or the Sharia compliance, right? Is it really halal? Is it really Islamic? Who approved it? How do I know that they are doing the right thing? And so on and so forth. Is there any haram income, that I'm receiving on my deposit? Is there something that I'm, not doing good, and so on? When it comes to neobanks, and again, this is very, generic, which applies to conventional and Islamic neobanks both, is the, the question of trust. Because it's new, people may think, oh, we don't know who these people are. Can we trust them with our money? What's, the possibility of having a cyber security issue? Maybe, there is a scam, maybe I'll lose my money, and so on. The problem with Islamic neobanks is actually it becomes a compounding effect. So it's the worst of both worlds for them. Not only that people are questioning and having doubts about their Sharia compliance, but they are also having doubts about their credibility as an institution. So this is a growth and on the sustainability of the neobank. So now concluding my analysis, I will just like to synthesize all these issues into 3 key areas. So there will be an overall impact of poor and Sharia and corporate governance in a neobank. First of all, on the performance, as I said, there will be high compliance costs. So if there is a lack of Sharia and corporate governance within an Islamic neobank, inherently the compliance costs will be much higher, and the operational efficiency will be much lower, right? Which will create a gap in their performance and in their profitability overall. So this is one major problem. The other set of problems is actually the implication on their growth. So as I said, the growth, the market expansion can be affected, adversely affected. The investor confidence, because usually the investors, when they invest in your seed round, round A, B, C, whatever, they will have an expectation, oh, now the valuation shall go to this level, now the bank shall become profitable, now we are making a growth, etc. Why all this is not happening? So they can actually lose confidence, and the neobank may have issues in raising funds in their future rounds, but also having the lines of funding as well. So this is very important. And then also product innovation, it can be actually very prohibitive for them as well. And finally, on the sustainability, because there may be issues of risk management, the reputation and trust, I said, was a key matter for them, and that can actually have very serious adverse impact on the performance of and the sustainability of the bank, and it may create issues from regulatory point of view as well. So now the final thing is, all these problems are there, how do we deal with them? So what's the solution? So I have a few sets of recommendations for you. And these, all this analysis and the recommendations are actually based on our true hands-on experience across the industry, across multiple jurisdictions. And this is something that we have found actually works. First of all, there has to be an adequate and enhanced Sharia governance framework for any Islamic neobank. And that shall be a framework that is fit for purpose. So it shall be made specifically for an Islamic bank and for a neobank. Then there shall be an end-to-end Sharia compliance embedded. The principle of proportionality, this is very important, because what I construed from the discussion today in the earlier session and this session as well, that probably some of what shall I say, the certifications that are being sought are probably not even required. But why? Because having a Sharia board for a very small fintech will be very costly exercise, and it may not be easy to do as well. So we have to apply the principle of proportionality, and this is something that IOFI actually stresses upon a lot. We emphasize a lot on this issue of proportionality in IOFI standards, that everything has to be applicable in adequacy with the operation. So if the operation is big enough and it can afford and it requires actually a Sharia board, then there shall be a Sharia board. If it isn't, then there are other options as well that can also be applied, and there will be good solutions from there as well. Then also dynamic Sharia board and active involvement in ongoing advisory capacities, meaning the Sharia board members are not only scholars in Sharia, but they shall be also tech savvy as well, because this is neobank, so they need to understand the technology, how it works, and so on and so forth. Then use of technology to automate and stuff, and cross-jurisdictional and collaboration of standardized global practices, meaning IOFI and IFSB standards. Then the second one is innovative product development, where customer-centric design is applied, and then co-development initiatives as well, having more collaboration, with different partners, including if there are any traditional banks involved in the process as well, and then, developing the ecosystem. Then 360-degree training and continuous learning. This is very important for the, for the personnel, for the staff, and the management, and even the shareholders and the board of directors of the Islamic neobanks. The more they understand, the better they will do business, right? So there shall be a culture of learning all the time, and just having attending a couple of training sessions here and there is not enough. So the institution needs to invest more in its people, train the staff, train the management as well, even the board of directors. They shall be trained, and there shall be create partnerships with educational institutions as well. And then the final one, but the most important one probably, is building consumer confidence, and that is by offering transparency and education. And when I say education, what we have found actually very helpful is if there is a factor of gamification in financial education that may be embedded actually within the products and within the processes of an Islamic neobank, that can be actually very, very helpful, because people then become more interested. It's much easier for them to understand and to retain that knowledge and to disseminate that knowledge as well. So having awareness campaigns and community engagement is very important for Islamic neobanks. That's the end of my presentation. I'm more than happy to take any questions on the panel and even after the panel offline. Thank you.
Mr. Mohammed, thank you so much. Dear guests, dear guests, it's the time for our next speaker. So if you will have any question to Mr. Mohammed, we can make it after the session. Thank you so much. Thank you for understanding. Коллеги, если будут какие-то вопросы к Mr.
Colleagues, if there are any questions to Mr. Mohammed due to timing, please put your questions right after the session. Thank you for understanding.
Десай, генеральный директор Global исламских финансов, GIFC, и председатель и основатель Российского совета исламских финансов, RIFC. Выступление будет онлайн.
So there will be online presentation.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف
O God Almighty and merciful, Prophet Muhammad, and we are supported by Quran, and we are safeguarding ourselves thanks to Allah, and we would like Allah to cut us from the devil.
Of this esteemed conference in Kazan, my fellow colleagues, respected audience, I greet you in the name of peace. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. On behalf of the Russian Islamic Finance Council, Global Islamic Financial Services, and our stakeholders, I applaud you for your fantastic efforts in promoting Islamic finance. I was extremely pleased to hear some of the presentations of my honorable colleagues, and I thank them for all of their fantastic efforts in promoting this important sector, Islamic finance. Nevertheless, in my presentation today, I would like to dissect the concept of artificial intelligence and Islamic finance, and how Islamic finance can play a role in artificial intelligence. In the verse which I've quoted before you, Almighty Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran that today I have perfected your religion. In other words, that from an Islamic viewpoint, Islam is a complete and a perfect way of life. It is applicable to each and every scenario and situation. And therefore, when we consider the concept of artificial intelligence, and let's say, for example, the concept of neuroplasticity and neurobanking, and how the neurofunctioning of the human mind is sought to be replicated in the form of artificial intelligence in terms of its different subsets. I will just give you one example. It is mentioned in the hadith in which the Prophet has mentioned al-istiqamatu fawqa alfi karama, that consistency and continuity, it is better than 1,000 miracles. Right? Now when we talk of the concept of neuroplasticity, that how when the human mind is affected by neurotransmission on a continuous basis in the form of consistency, that how the mind becomes more enhanced from a neuroplasticity perspective. Then we find that this concept of neuroplasticity has already been discussed in Sharia 1400 years ago. And therefore, this brings me to the concept of artificial intelligence. I would just like to mention a few important points in terms of artificial intelligence, a few important statistics around artificial intelligence. It is believed that almost 30%, right, of banking productivity will be increased through Gen AI. And almost 75% of the work in banking can be either automated or augmented. And when we look at artificial intelligence, almost 43% of questions or searches being posed online are through financial questions. And according to a World Economic Forum report, almost 97 million new jobs will be created. In the US alone, 50% of all searches are being done by voice queries. And perhaps China is the most prolific when it comes to artificial intelligence adoption, where almost 58% of companies have adopted AI in some way or format. According to a PwC report, the world's economy will increase by almost 14% of its GDP through AI by the year 2030. And this will translate into an increase in the global GDP of almost 15.7 trillion United States dollars. In Russia, if we talk of Russia, according to official sources, almost 49.6% of companies in the Russian Federation have adopted artificial intelligence in some way or the other. And in the Federation, you have what is called the EPR law, number 258, that speaks about the adoption of artificial intelligence. And there are other resolutions in the law of the Russian Federation that seek to consider the adoption of artificial intelligence. These are some important statistics around artificial intelligence and AI. Now, I have a few questions to pose to you, and I have 3 questions. The first question is, imagine if, from a Sharia auditing perspective, right, there is an audit that is being conducted, and you have artificial intelligence, and the moment there is an aspect of non-compliance from a Sharia perspective, that automatically an AI tool picks up certain red flags within the documentation, within the systems and processes of a particular Islamic neobank or Islamic bank, and this gets reported immediately to the relevant Sharia governing authority within that institution. So there's an immediate reporting of an instance of Sharia non-compliance, as opposed to non-compliance being reviewed on an ongoing basis, let's say after 3 months or 6 months, for example. So this is a proactive advanced search of non-compliance issues to streamline compliance in Islamic banks. Secondly, for example, when we look at the concept of personalization from an AI perspective. So imagine, for example, you have school kids, for example, in Russia, for example, and Brother Farooq talked about gamification. And for example, through AI, the bank would be able to understand the specific customer avatar or the psychographics of every child. And on that basis, it would be able to incentivize the child accordingly in terms of how to save money, how to invest, for example, in a Sharia-compliant manner, for example. Or thirdly, let's say, for example, you as a customer of an Islamic bank, right, you want to know a particular question about a particular product. And just this morning, I was on a call with one of the largest Islamic financial institutions that happens to be one of our stakeholders. And they said, look, generally what we find now is, customers have so many questions, for example, and they are not being adequately answered, and someone simply says, well, we are Sharia compliant because we can show a Sharia certificate. Now, is that sufficient? Is that the standard that we want to be held to? No. So imagine, for example, you have a Sharia chatbot, for example, where you ask questions to, let's say, a virtual scholar or virtual mufti, for example. He may not be 100% correct, but he would be able to answer your question from a Sharia perspective, for example. So these are some points to consider. Now, going into the presentation, I don't want to bore you with too many facts and too many points, but when we talk of Islamic banking and AI, in our view, based on our research, according to the laws of the AI Impact Index and KNEX coding system, we believe that Sharia AI or Sharia artificial intelligence is a $1 trillion United States opportunity. So artificial intelligence, what is AI? AI is a field of computer science dedicating to solving cognitive problems commonly associated with human intelligence, such as learning, problem solving, and pattern recognition. And essentially, it is a simulation of human intelligence that mimics intelligence or behavioral patterns of human beings. And you have, for example, machine learning, natural language processing, facial recognition, and image processing. Now, Islamic banks should become AI-empowered and AI natives in order to compete with the next wave of AI banking or adoption of AI within banks, based on the following trends. Firstly, you have rising customer expectations as adoption of digital banking increases. Secondly, some of the world's leading financial institutions are all using AI advanced technologies. And digital ecosystems are disintermediating traditional financial services. This is why we talk of mainstream financial services, and we have private markets. So you have public markets and you have private markets. And for those who are involved in financial services, you know that the private markets are almost catching up with public markets. For example, elements such as private credit. The private credit markets are catching up to public markets. And certain technology giants are also entering financial services. For example, in China, you have Alibaba that has Alipay. Alipay is one of the largest financial institutions globally, and it is simply disintermediating traditional financial services. Let's look at some of the numbers in terms of AI. So almost 74% of the industry would be completely transformed by AI. AI will result in almost 67% net gain in jobs in the next 3 years. And 54% of executives, they say that they talk of the skills gap in terms of artificial intelligence. Now let's look at the traditional AI customer journey, and we can apply this to the Islamic scenario. So imagine a particular person, let's say Muhammad, for example. He comes into an Islamic AI bank. Right? So automatically, the AI tool would be able to recognize the spending patterns, for example, of Muhammad, for example. Where does he have his coffee? How does he spend his money, etc. And through facial recognition, automatically, Muhammad would be able to log into his banking app, for example. And through that, for example, through facial recognition, he can also make a payment. So he walks into a particular store, without using any app, without using any technology. He just, through his smile, for example, and through facial recognition, he's able to pay. Another example is, let's say, for example, Mohammed, has certain habits, for example. He goes to the gym, he buys coffee at a particular place, and on that basis, he receives certain offers, for example. So that is now personalization. And like that, there's so many other examples in terms of how AI can enhance the usage and productivity and efficiency of banking for the ordinary banking customer. Now, when we talk of the Islamic AI Bank of the future, right, this is a very detailed graph or diagram of how the Islamic AI Bank of the future would work. But in brief, the engagement is changed. So this is why we call it AI native banking. So you have intelligence products, tools, experiences for customers, employees. You have smart services and operations. Secondly is the decision making in terms of, for example, how to lend money, for example. That is done on the basis of AI analytics, for example. Now, for example, we at GIFS, we created certain AI tools that look at almost 16,000 pieces of data before we provide a loan to a client, for example. And then you look at core technology and data. And I've said this before on many occasions that data and structured data is the new gold. In other words, that institutions that have structured data, they would be able to supersede and compete at the highest level. Now, we look at Gen AI. So what are the use cases for Gen AI in banking? So you have a chatbot. So imagine you can have a Sharia chatbot. So your customers, for example, they ask a question, for example, what is musharaka? What is diminishing musharaka, for example? So they get a detailed answer with an example, for example. Or, for example, they ask a question, why is this product Sharia compliant? And it details the entire processes. Right? Then we talk of portfolio management, compliance management. Myself being a Sharia scholar, I wouldn't have to go through reams of paper, for example. For example, there is an AI tool called case text. So imagine if you have something called Sharia case text, where the IOFI standards, for example, are imputed into the code, and automatically all of the documentation of the bank is reviewed based on a particular code of standards, for example. And those and all of the standards, for example, are then highlighted in terms of compliance and non-compliance. So that will make my job easier being a Sharia scholar. Another example is, for example, loan score management. So scoring happens not on the basis of outdated methodologies, but on the basis of newer methodologies. I'll give you a simple example. Did you know that there are certain banks, they watch your spending habits, for example. And let's say, for example, if you typically spend, let's say, $100 on a full tank of petrol, for example, and for the last 3 months, you were only spending $50 at a time, for example. Now, automatically, based on the neural understanding and the psychology of customer habits, the AI tool will say, look, we think that this person might be going through some financial trouble, so on that basis, we should cut the credit for that particular client, for example. So what are the AI opportunities for banks? If banks become AI native, and with that AI first approach to customer engagement, banks would have increasing access to customers, and they would be able to scale at a much rapid rate. Right? And we talked of this previously in terms of the cost to income ratio. So recently I presented to a group of financial institutions in Dubai, in my home city, and I mentioned to them that why are you proud of having so many bank branches? You should be proud of cutting and decreasing the number of branches that you have, so that number one, your cost to income ratio drops, and number two, you have increasing scale where you're able to reach more customers with the excess cash that you have on your balance sheet. So these are some of the benefits of AI according to McKinsey, one of the world's leading consulting companies. Now, when we talk of the opportunities for Sharia AI, I won't go through too much detail, but you have Islamic chatbots, predictive financial technologies. Now, when we talk of predictive financial technologies, imagine right now you have Sharia screening of stocks, for example. And the screening is the scheming is reactive, it's not proactive. So what I mean by this is that, for example, in IOFA you have, the 90-day rule, for example. So once you become aware of non-compliance, then you need to sell within 90 days, for example. We at GIFS, we have, our own criteria for Sharia screening, for example. So imagine if you are able to predict Sharia non-compliance within the next 2 years, with like a 90% success rate. You as the portfolio manager, right, you'd be able to choose stocks in a more efficient way as opposed to buying a stock, let's say, that's on the up, and then because of a non-compliance issue, you automatically have to sell off. Right? So that becomes a hit to the portfolio. Right? Then we talk of Islamic Neobanking, Sharia auditing and governance can be enhanced through AI, and Islamic educational programs. So we, for example, at GIFS, we have launched the first Sharia artificial intelligence talent program for some of our stakeholders and clients, and this has been launched in Canada, the United Kingdom, and Australia. When we look at the challenges, so what are the challenges for AI? So firstly is inadequate availability of quality structured data. Now, this is a question that we need to think about from an ethical perspective, that what type of data is being used in AI, right? And there are all sorts of considerations to consider, right? And there is a key stat that has been promulgated that almost 76% of the market thinks that AI is influenced by misinformation, right? So some of these ethical governance standards need to be considered from a Sharia perspective, right? And then you have a lack of an enabling data ecosystem. That how is data shared, for example? Now, if you look at the European Union, they have considered an EU data ecosystem where data is registered across the entire ecosystem, and the data, the structured data, is governed at EU level from a governance perspective. Some of the other challenges includes transparency, Sharia governance and auditing, and I think one of the most important challenges right now is innovation and utility value creation. So what I mean by this, that you have many of these AI tools, but are they actually adding value in terms of productivity, efficiency, etc.? So these are the questions we need to be posing. These are some of the tools from an AI perspective: cloud robotics, thought control, deep learning, neural networks, etc. Now, just a thought from a thought control perspective, right? There is something called
Mr. Ismail, we are so sorry. We are a little bit out of timing.
Cognitive neuroprocessing. In other words, that based on the information that we receive as humans, our subconscious is being pre-programmed. Now, from an Islamic finance perspective, imagine if you had certain tools where you could almost educate the masses using some of these AI tools so that they become more aware of Islamic finance, for example, as opposed to conventional finance. Right? One initiative of GIFS, before I terminate my presentation, is what we call the Algorithmic AI Center of Excellence. Now, I just want to give you a brief around algorithmy and what does this word mean, right? So the word algorithmy comes from a particular scholar by the name of Muhammad al-Khwarizmi. Now, Muhammad al-Khwarizmi was born in the year 780, and he was from Al-Khwarizm, which is in present-day Uzbekistan and Turkmenistan. Right?
Mr. Ismail, we are so sorry.
Which is in your backyard anyway, in Central Asia. And today, in present-day terminology, this city is referred to as Khiva, Khiva. And he was the modern inventor of algorithm, right? Of algorithm, or the science of algebra. And where does the word algebra come from? There is a word.
Thank you so much for your time. We will send you, dear guests, the presentation of Mr. Ismail, because there's a lot of details on the presentation. So if you want, we are going to share the presentation. Дорогие гости, мы направим вам презентацию.
We'll send the presentation to you. If you need, all the presentations will be available for you. And now I want to give the floor to Kirill Borisovich Grigoriev, Vice President of Tinkoff Bank for development of online banking in the Russian Federation.
Good evening, dear colleagues. There were so many words pronounced at this discussion about the neobanking. And Mohammed expressed an idea that there are no large-scale banks which do exist for decades. But in Russia, we have such a bank. It has been in place for about 17 years at the online format without any branches. I would like to cite some numbers. And we are the bank number 2 in Russia as to the number of clients. Sberbank goes first, and then we, with 42 million clients, are preceding them. We are very profitable. We have quite a number of assets, and we are growing very successfully. But we are not growing as a classical bank, providing lending instruments, but we also have the business of commissions. And we have quite a number of in brokerage, insurance, mobile operators, lifestyle services, also air tickets, booking, and these services are also ours. But we have the product of ours, which is a favorite one. It's Super App. What makes us different? We have no branches, and never those branches will occur. We don't need them, and the clients do not need them. We have quite a number of services, and they are placed into one application, and they actually may derive all the information right from this application. And that is why clients like it very much. They use it, and also it provides quite a number of services. AI is another interesting subject. AI is our future, and something will change in the future. And neobanking was our project before everything appeared at the global context. We used AI. We had the voice recognition practices, and we were supposed to get focused on the digital technologies. So the voice recognition was one of them, and we started doing it more than 10 years ago, and we were pioneering in that. And the company actually has a photo for all the clients, and we have anti-fraud applications for recognition of various images. And so we have an absolutely new approaches, and we have our own DNA. Also, we have language models, assistants, and supporters, and they will be also extrapolated onto our Islamic project. Why did we decide to undertake Islamic banking or neo-banking as a new trend of ours? We are growing quite consistently. We have 42 million clients. They are all they have different nationalities from different countries of the country, and we had a number of signals who called our call centers. They wanted to get rid of the interest as it ran counter to the Sharia law. And we, at this point of time, offer just classical products, but we have hundreds and hundreds thousand clients of that sort, and we have no alternative. We had to actually think of something new, because the, our practices do not comply with their faith and Sharia law. Several years ago, we started using these products for not only for residents but for non-residents. And in Russia, we have CIS countries representatives, and they are perceived as non-residents, and 85% of them are Muslims, those coming to Russia. And in order to provide services to non-residents, we have to think of some new products in Russia. And that is the situation, the regular situation at every bank. And so the technologies are not adapted or adjusted for customers of that sort. And we decided to think of the Islamic banking procedures. And with regard to our expertise, we started structuring Islamic banking procedures, and I think it will be a success. But of course, we incur certain risks. And not only us, but elsewhere, come across certain risks. The question arises whether the product will be in demand. And will new clients come to us? And people use traditional banks, commercial banks, in majority of cases. But we have a vast geography, and our services penetrated to Crimea, for example, and we didn't deliver cards to Crimea after the imposition of sanctions. But at the present day moment, we are getting access to the new regions. And the clients in Crimea are we have more clients in Crimea than in Dagestan or Chechnya. So there are quite a number of other nations of Russia, so they do not very willingly use the services of standard banks. And people want to be compliant with their faith, with the Sharia law, and so we understood the necessity of the incorporation of Islamic banks. And there is a group of people which is very much interested in that procedure. And the regulation should be an adequate one, not just the instructions from the central bank, but quite a number of bodies aside of our institutions of that sort. And so special training needs to be provided. And already we have the expert team, and we also cooperate with the pertinent body in the Republic of Tatarstan, and we use their practices in our Islamic project. We comply with the general standards, and a month ago, we were included into the partnership funding project of the central bank. So little by little, we are going closer to our goal, and so we also are going to launch the Islamic card. That is the first step. But so far we didn't manage to do it within a month, but in a few months period it's going to be launched. And at maximum it is going to comply with the standards. And already we have the classical banking in place, but we do not have a problem of mono-Islamic banking. When you have the compliance of a product and the compliance to Sharia laws is an issue of survival. And so we have traditional banks, conventional banks, but in our case, we are supposed to create the 100% halal product. Not, not that we're going to make some intermediate decision or just semi-decisions. We are going to have the ultra conservative product at the market. And so the next step is lending, funding, and we have BNPL, and probably you know about it, about this project BNPL. The classical BNPL is the relative of the Islamic installment. And we, on the basis of BNPL, are going to organize Islamic type BNPL without any penalties, or penalties will be forwarded to the charitable purposes. Also, we have leasing, and leasing will presuppose the pledge funding, and people will acquire transport, some vehicles, real estate, and within the framework of this current trend, we will structure the most advanced Islamic neobank. Thank you for your kind attention. Kirill, thank you so much. While you were always surprised to find out the information about your new products. Maybe after the presentation, we are supposed to organize the Q&A session. And now I would like to give the floor to Venera Mengalievna. She is the counsel for the board of PAO Zenit Bank.
Ассаламу алейкум. Приветствую всех участников форума Россия Исламский.
I would like to welcome the attendees to that forum, Russia Islamic World. My name is Venera Tleoliva. I represent Zenit Bank. That's a large universal commercial bank. And within the last 30 years, it has been operating at the market. We have retail products, classical products, business products, cards, loans, leasing, factoring, and we have very good private banking of a high quality. And we use digital channels, internet bank, mobile application sites, and also classical schemes. And the bank has 49 branches, and they are represented in 32 cities and towns of Russia. And I would like to cite some new numbers, which look different as that of Tinkoff Bank. And today, 750,000 clients trust us. 750,000 retail clients and more than 9,000 corporate clients. And let's get back to the subject matter of our discussion. There was quite a number of research provided as to the potential of Islamic finance advancement. And let me cite some statistics. One of the international auditing companies identified the potential for the Russian corporate segment development in 2024, and it will constitute 920 billion rubles. And the Republic of Tatarstan gives us statistics for the share of the real sector businesses which are interested in Islamic products. With regard to the sociological survey of the Ministry of Economy of Tatarstan, Zenit Bank, in addition, also made their internal research with respect to the interest of clients in Islamic products. 44% of our respondents responded and they wanted to have Islamic banking card, which is compliant to the norms of Sharia. And also, we've got some statements and theses from our respondents. I think they will be of great interest to you. We asked the respondents, how did you decide to profess Islam? It's very trivial. It comes from my parents. And my parents professed Islam for many centuries. And a young woman from Kazan gave another smart answer. I was born in that faith. My family, all my family are Muslims, and I like my religion. And the role of imam was very highly assessed by some respondents. And the reputation of imam also contributed to the people who might become Muslims within their life. And we also cooperated with other respondents, and we asked them how Islam supports their life. Concentration, calmness, peace, and so it helps me a lot. And there are quite a number of limitations, not to drink alcohol or smoke tobacco or just use curse words. And after namaz, I have some kind of tranquility, and that's the state of my soul. And I would like to give you some conclusions as a result of this research. And Islam, to a large extent, identifies the values and traditions. That is, the traditions respect to the older ones and the strive to have pilgrimage to Mecca. What about the Islamic banking card, Zenit? And we wanted not just to give a research, but we want to take it practical value. And this year, Bank Zenith is going to develop Islamic products, Islamic banking products. And for us as a bank, it's a very responsible initiative, especially after all the trainings and classes within the framework of this forum. So I realized that it's a very serious venture, and we do not have to go along some risky field, but full of mines. But I would like to dedicate my presentation to the takeaways or expert review of all the efforts made by us. This slide shows our Islamic card, which will comply with the norms of Sharia. But we all know what this card is all about. This is a standard one, which allows to freely buy certain goods, get cashbacks, and certain purchases are forbidden, but it has to fully comply with Sharia rules, and we know all these norms and how it all works. And I would like even to boast, our card looks good. We wanted to make it originally very bright, and the one which is really memorable. It has 8 angles star. This is one of the symbols of Islam, and the form has a shape of equity, harmony, and justice in Islamic world. And in the foreseeable future, we will somehow update it, and we want this card to be used by the private banking and retail clients. And also we're going to develop the Islamic corporate card and business cards as well. It's all ahead, but we will take into account the expertise of our colleagues and with a focus on the full compliance with the Sharia laws. And Islamic finance is a serious step forward of our country, and we would like to provide the financial services relevant to our clients. And in Russia, we have a very interesting saying. A strong wind breaks weak branches. And we have to go to these trials and tests, but we might not necessarily reach the point immediately. But with your support, you will be able to do it. And this particular slide presents our QR code and our branches and contacts. Please get in touch with us. Dear friends, we to a large extent are colleagues with you, but not partners. So I would like to become partners, and I invite you for cooperation, mutually beneficial cooperation, and so that we implement our joint projects. And I think that the Islamic products development is a very key initiative of ours, but it is also very important for Russia as well. We understand that everything is progressing, and we also have to do the same. And in conclusion, I would like to cite a wish in Arabic. I would translate it. If you want to find something, you'll do it. And your day should be full of roses and jasmine. And thank you so much.
Венера Мингалиевна, благодарим вас. Очень приятно, что...
Thank you so much. And our banks are going forward with all the innovations. And I would like to give the floor to our neighbors, the bank in Kyrgyzstan, and Pushkin Denis Vladimirovich, the chair of Sharia Council of RSK Bank, joint stock. Good afternoon.
It's the end of the day, people are tired. It's the final session. I hope it will be useful. We joined you here from Kyrgyzstan to share some of our experience in development of Islamic banking in Kyrgyz Republic. My name is Denis. I was born in Kyrgyzstan. I'm a Russian. 20 years ago, I became a Muslim, and several years I spent in in-depth science studies of Islam, and 8 years I worked as an expert on Islamic theology with a government institution. For the third year, I've been working in Erska Bank, firstly as a member of the Shariat board. Starting from January this year, I'm chairman of the Shariat board. And now let's switch to our presentation. Our presentation is styled Islamic banking and neo-banking as a requirement of the contemporary world. Indeed, this is a requirement to which we should provide a timely response. Let's go back into history of development of Islam in Kyrgyzstan. In the early 90s, in the Republic of Kyrgyzstan, about 200,000 square kilometers, there were only 35 mosques in the early 90s. Now the number of mosques is much bigger, and we have about 4,000 mosques in the Republic, while our population is only 7 million, of which 35% are children under 14 years old. In 2003, I became a Muslim, and when for the first time I went to Midjanamas, it was in 2003, and gradually there emerged a trend of involvement younger generation in Islam, and all mosques are full now. During namaz, people read prayers out in the street. Today, our population, younger people, are interested in the matters of confession, while before the interest was more towards religious practices like namaz, fasting, etc. Now younger people are moving to the stage of application of Islam in their daily life, including in business, commerce, and financial transactions. For a believer, it is a matter of importance that his or her business is Shariat compliant, and younger people, that is the most active part of our believers, they do not take loans from conventional banks as a matter of principle. And therefore, to take care of the needs of younger people, we started Islamic windows in conventional banks. 5 banks in Kyrgyzstan provide Islamic financing services: RSK Bank and Postbank, and 3 commercial banks, and there are several micro-lending companies, microfinancing companies which operate fully in compliance with Sharia. With the relevant legal framework for these activities, on the 10th of August of 2022, Erska Bank obtained a license from the National Bank of the Republic of Kyrgyzstan for the right to carry out banking operations which are Sharia compliant through Islamic windows. We have a license for the following operations: Murabaha, sales of goods on installment plan; Mudaraba, trust management; Ijara Montahai Bitamlik, that is leasing with further buyout. And we also have cards. Today, our Islamic window operates with the following products: Murabaha Auto, Murabaha Business, Murabaha Mortgage, Murabaha Commercial Vehicles, Murabaha Consumer, and Murabaha Agriculture. We also finance agriculture under the state-sponsored programs. Murabaha FAPK, we finance agriculture sector; Murabaha Farming, and Murabaha FSHBR, financing agriculture with the support of the Islamic Bank for Development. there are plenty of consumers who benefit from these transactions. This is uh, motor loans in conventional bankings up to 2 million soms. Som is about equivalent to 1 ruble. We take care of the commercial vehicles as well, up to 10 million soms with a term of 6 years. Development of business of shared compliance business. These facilities are issued for the term of up to 5 years. Mortgage lending up to 7 years. Agriculture, including agro-industrial complex. There is also a project to support women business ladies. We issue loans for the term of up to 60 months for up to 3 million rubles. We work in the area of automation and digitalization of data and business processes. LSK Bank is a state-owned bank. 100% of stock is owned by the government of the Republic of Kyrgyzstan. It's been in operation for over 27 years. And we have our branches in all regions of the Republic, and we have specialists and experts on the ground who can provide advisory services and guidelines for retail customers in accordance with Sharia principles. 50 branches, 53 branches. As for mobile applications, we have RSK mobile application with nearly 400,000 users, and over 900 services are offered through this application, well, including for the tax service, public transportation, etc. The application provides a variety of wire transfers both inside the Republic of Kyrgyzstan and beyond. SWIFT, Contact, Unistream, Zolotaya Corona, and Visa money transfers across the world. In 2023, we started to provide the following public services in our mobile application: tax payment and tax arrears payment, re-registration of vehicles, payment of customs duties, and paying for the services of the Ministry of Justice, and smart money transfers for MasterCard and Visa. You can place an order for a credit card, banking card online, remote identification for starting an account and connection to the mobile banking, installation of point of sales terminals, etc. One-touch payment through Google Pay and RSK Pay. We have a new version of mobile application for retail clients: remote registration, authorization, biometric identification of users, client profile, integration with the following state bodies to obtain 6 public services: General Prosecutor's Office, Ministry of Digital Development of the Republic, Tax Service, and Judicial Department under the Supreme Court of the Republic of Kyrgyzstan. We have another nice product. We collaborate with Mega Cellular operator. Your business in digits in single window, very useful application for businesses. It provide support to enterprises at the entire life cycle of an enterprise, starting a business, tax payment, and liquidation of an enterprise if there is a need in that. We are a state-owned bank. We have a variety of state-sponsored programs, while commercial banks look for new clients. And in our case, plenty of clients look for our service themselves because we have a variety of state-sponsored programs to support our retail clients. And these products can be obtained through the Islamic window. There is an Ishkar application which collaborates with state insurance company, social welfare fund, and Kyrgyzstan mail service and tax service. Thank you for your attention. This, in a nutshell, well, that is what our bank is doing in Kyrgyzstan. Thank you. Thank you, Denis Vladimirovich.
Final speaker, Mr. Mohammed Ruchi, founder at FinTech Bazaar, the landscape of neobanking development in the Arabic countries.
Dobry den, Yarad Boudiziz. Thank you very much for having me here. And I'm very sorry to be the last one. You know, I know it's a tiring day for me too because I spoke before. So it's like I will try really to be fast and try to speak about what you didn't hear from before. I want something from you quickly for 1 minute. Can we all stand up, please? Because it's too very tiring. You're sleeping. I want you to stand up, please. Can you stand up? Like this so your blood can go. Can you put your hand like this? Do like that. 1. Careful about people next to you. 1 more. 2, 3. And thank you very much for being here till this moment. Okay, you know, I will just try to be as quick as possible, and thank you really for being here till this moment. I will talk very quickly. Since this is really very long, I will not just take all the slides, otherwise we will be Aisha here, or will be till midnight. This is very interesting. I will share this presentation really because I have lots of things here. It's very good to know about digital banking. I'm talking about digital banking and new banking. There is, by the way, there is difference between digital banking and new banking, and I'm going to just discuss it quickly here now to make sure that you are not in. This is where the digital banking enablers, you know, smartphones is the first thing, you know, the cloud adoption, and then financial crisis, you know, people looking for a job. That's why we have fintech and digital banking. Entrepreneurship, you know, everybody who would like to have his own company. Me, I have FinTech Bazaar now. Everybody would like to be the boss, right? Who would like to be like, you know, Alibaba, you know, entrepreneur, you know, 40 million, whatever billion dollar, he has few billion dollars. Everybody would like to have his own business. Everybody would like to be an entrepreneur. And then funding and, you know, and regulation. For entrepreneurship, everybody would like to be an entrepreneur, and I like this photo, you know. See this photo? I would like to be an entrepreneur, right? Even my kids, I tell them, guys, you know, try to think about, yeah, you do your study, but let's do something different. And that's why the fintech innovation startups, they came from here really. You know, 7, 8 years back, we never hear about a startup, digital bank, new bank, or whatever, you know, or Uber, or Yandex. All this came newly, you know, like, so all this ecosystem was developed. So we have today what we have the fintech, like Brother Farouk said, you know, digital banks are startups, that's true. It's almost a startup, except Think Of is very old bank, but it's still a digital bank. But we're going to talk about what was happening in the Arab world, in the, you know, in our region, because it has its own flavors as well. It's not really startups. So we're going to show you the banks which we have in the Middle East. Quickly now, what is there? You know, the most important things here, 2 things here, what fintech, digital banking giving. Mobile only, everybody talk about it, you know. Digital banks, fintechs, and so on, or new banks, they are mobile only. But look at the other one I put in blue, unbundling. This, nobody talk about it today. The most important thing, digital bank, fintechs, and so on, go to the unbundling one. What's unbundling? Look at this one. Sorry, this one, I think it's repeated. I will not go to the others, but let us see what's unbundling here. You know, I have two things, unbundling vertical and horizontal. The horizontal one is very, very important. We'll see it now. Look at this one. This is one global bank. This is bank. You know, any bank you go to Sberbank, you go VTB, they have all of these products. But now what fintech, innovation, startups, digital bank, new banks came, they came with these lines, lending alone, RegTech, financing, payment. We don't have anymore this big bank, you go and say, how many products you have? They cannot tell you how many products they have. They have many. The same one here, look at this bank. This is a global bank, like VTB, like Sberbank. If you want to replace this bank with fintechs and new banks and digital banks, this is one of the example, global bank. I remove the name, let's say VTB, for example, or 55 fintechs and new banks will replace this bank. This is a big dinosaur, Sberbank, VTB, whatever you can call it. How many products in retail? How many in corporate? How many investment? How many trade finance product? All of these, if you want to replace this big dinosaur bank with the new startups, fintechs, new banks, digital banks, you have 55 fintechs. One of these are one of the best digital banks globally, Sterling Bank in UK. One of these, he has one or two here. So you are replacing these big dinosaurs with what? With this kind of one. Why? Because here, what's happened, we're getting more specialized. I get one or two products, I work on it, I do it, wow, I sell it to my customer, I become super. Not like everything, I have 100 products, I'm not able to, to fight here and there. And this is the idea of new banks, digital banks, fintechs. Let me show you this one. This is a global one. One of these companies, for example, Chime, I'm not talking about, of course, think of should be here. Chime, for example, how many products do you have? One, this is the one. 1, 2, 3 products. You know this bank, what is the value of this bank? $25 billion. And this is not a bank, this is a new bank. We'll talk about new bank. This bank does not have a banking license. This bank in USA using two banks, like Sberbank and VTB. He has two banks in the backside, and what that bank has he has only fintech app, a banking app. This bank is a good example why. This bank, when one day they put a Chime Bank, he was fined by US regulatory, say you're not a bank, pay this fine, remove the word bank. You are a fintech app. So this is a new bank. So if even you have 2, 3 products, you could be giant, you could be really big. Even you don't have to be, having your own license. So this is what we call, you have few products there, and these few products, you can be big. If you look at the four lines in the beginning, this is our Chase, for example, is a bank. Like if Sberbank today said, I'm going to have my digital bank, they will have it with a different name, Sberbank Digital, for example. Because this bank have all the products, he can offer all the products online, digitally. That's why you see the first 4 lines, they have more products. But from the line number 5, even Amazon is there. You can, all of these guys, they are offering banking services. And this banking service have 2, 3 products only, and they innovate around, okay? So this is very important to know the unbundling is the key beyond the success of digital banks, fintechs, and new banks. Let me, sorry. Let us go to the next one, the vertical one. Any bank, conventional banking today, what do you have to operate? You need a license, right? You need a central bank will give you a license. And after you get the license, you need to have what? Processing. You have a system, you have people, and so on. This is a back office. And the third one, what you will have, sales people. People, branches selling, online channel selling. This is the 3 areas of being a conventional bank. If you look today, this is the vertical, unbundling. Today, the last one could be a new bank. The new bank does not have to have a license, like a Chime Bank, for example, and does not have a processing as well. He could have a fintech app, you plug it in with a bank, and you become, a new bank. So here, the unbundling, the vertical one, you could be in one of these layers only and become a new bank. So the unbundling is the key. You take one area, you focus in it, you excel, and you get more customer, and you collaborate with the other ecosystem partners. This is a quick one I'm showing to you. This is issuing bank. Take any of the big banks in Russia. Second one is the issuer processor. Third one is the user-facing app. Look at the user-facing app. You'll find Triumph Bank, for example. This bank there is a $25 billion bank. You imagine. Does not have, this is card as a service. When you get a credit card or a debit card, this card, when you take it from your bank, the bank, like if we go to the previous screen, the bank do everything. The bank has the license to make this card from Visa, MasterCard, whatever. And then they have the software, the system, and they have the sales team which sells the card. So the bank is having all of these. But if I'm doing a fintech now today, why I have to spend big money in the processing and license? I go to think of, I said, guys, you have the license. I have the app, and I'm going to share revenue sharing with you. I'm going to get you 5,000 customers per day, for example, per month. And then, okay, I don't have the software to, I will go to Mercata, one of these card as a service. I'll plug them in to make the card for me, and I'm selling the card. But I am a new bank here. So I'm saying this is the era of innovation which is happening today, is the unbundling, either horizontally or vertically. This is example again, you know, like quickly, you can have this bank, you know, 3 banks here, the same company, many apps up. These apps are new banks, startup companies, fintechs, and so on. I'm trying to be. Now, brother, you know, Farouk, he gave you a very interesting thing about this in his presentation. Now, moving from brick and mortar traditional banks, which is only bank, no, you know, and branches and digital, going to new bank, you know, 100% mobile. I'm going to show you something which is make it more clearer now. This is very important to look at this one. This is the 4 types or 3 types of banking. The first one, traditional banking, digital branches, okay? You have a bank, VTB, whatever bank, they have digital channels, right? They have digital branch. You can go to the branch, you can do everything digitally even. I think even some banks, they have the same. But this other thing here, traditional banks, new digital brands. Now the bank is, instead of saying I'm VTB, he said, no, the VTB name, I need to get something else. We have the same in UAE. Emirates MBD, the third largest bank in UAE. 2017 came with something called LIV, L-I-V. LIV is a new bank, and it's new brand. Nobody don't live. But when you take the card of LIV, back in the card it said, by Emirates MBD. Why? The bank, in the sponsor bank, the license comes from whom? From Emirates MBD. So you have in traditional banks, either they have their own digital channels, or they make their own new brand, digital brand. The real digital one, we talk about it today. First, the left one, digital bank, a fintech. See, I wrote here a fintech, you know. Again, it's a startup. A fintech startup holding a bank license, like think of, for example, they have the bank license from here, Monzo, and so on. All of these, they have a digital banking license. The central bank gives them a license to operate as a digital bank only. And here's the guys, they have everything, they can offer everything, but they are digital bank, no branches. The left one called new banks. I'm saying this is globally how the naming are coming. I know here we refer to the new banks here in Russia as these 2, okay? New banks here is no branches. But here's the new bank, here's the right one. This is a digital bank, no banking license, which means I have an app, I have the software, I'm a technology company, I go and ask, okay, to think of, I need to work with you. I offer mine, but who is having the license from the central bank? Think of. And what will happen is they're going to share the risk with me and with them as well. So they make due diligence. I'm the right company, the right whatever. I offering mine, and we share the revenue. So here is new banks. It's easy to launch as well. Quickly here. Now this is like a big comparison. I'm a technical. I come as a CIO in banking. So now it says the license type in a new bank. It's a payment. It's a technology. Digital bank, they have a real license from the central bank. Technology stack, the new bank, they have only a front end of a fintech app, while the digital bank, they have a core banking, they have all the stack. You know, being a sponsor is an important word, by the way. it's bank identification number. If you don't have the license, then you have to find a bank to sponsor you, a bank to sponsor you. The bank sponsor is very common in different parts of the world. You know, Monzo, which is a big bank in UK, when he went to operate in USA, he couldn't get a license. He went to a bank to get a bank sponsoring and have the collaboration with each other. This is the products. I think we talked today about many of the product people talk about payment. So most of the new banks, they go in the payment first and then moving later on to financing. The digital bank can offer everything. Let me take you to here. This is like regulation become a key here. I'm showing you here, this is what's happening, and I'm taking you now to my region, which is the idea of the presentation, that now regulation becomes a key. And all the countries in UAE, in MENA and GCC, we have what we call sandbox. This is what sandbox means is a place to try your innovation. Because, you know, the central bank does not know really about this innovation. This is new things for them. What we have done here to have what we call a sandbox. And this sandbox, you try your ideas, then we can get you a license after that. And after this one, the demographics. This is quick demographics about the Middle East and North Africa and Arab countries. The very important thing here is the young population. The more you have more young population and internet penetration, the more you are able to innovate. Innovate in two things. The young you know, generation, they are able to use mobiles very nicely. They don't go to branches. At the same time, if you want to put a startup, you need these young guys to work as well as technology team and so on. And if you look at this, most of these countries in the Arab world, mobile penetration is very high. 2 mobiles, you know, and so on. So this demographics is very important. Now the 4 big ecosystem we are having in the Middle East, North Africa, and Arab countries, we have, you know, Bahrain, UAE, Saudi, Egypt, and Jordan. And I'm putting for you the number of fintechs here. Why I put the number of fintechs? Because the fintechs is the base of any digital bank. As I said, a new bank is a fintech company, is a startup. So this is where our ecosystem in MENA and Arab countries, we come here. This is how the digital banking, you know, is been moving in the Arab countries. You can see it really moving big time. This is another thing here. It's showing you few countries, what is in this country, what's happening, and what is there. The next screen is very important. I will show you now. I'll talk about it. This is what is happening, the real digital banks, new banks in Arab countries. This is the one. This one. So we're going to wait here for a few minutes and explain to you. As I said, we have digital banks and new banks. This is the same and new banks here in Russia. If you look, UAE is the most advanced as of today. We have 4 digital banks, and we have 3 new banks. But we have the first digital Islamic bank. Now our colleagues, you're talking, all of them about, you know, Windows and Islamic banking, products and think of. I think the first digital Islamic bank, which have a banking license from the central bank, is called Ru'ya. And this will be launched within few weeks. Now they are in the pilot stage. So UAE, they have a digital banking license. What they have done, they call it community banking. This community banking is, you know, it's lesser than the normal banking. That's why they work in a smaller ticket, and they work with also, you know, a different segment and so on. So we have these 4 digital banks and 3 new banks. Saudi, they have 3 digital banks, but you will be surprised. In Saudi, the 3 digital banks, they are not live yet. Why? Because the regulation. In my initial presentation, because we don't have the time, cloud was very, very important. If you don't have cloud, then you cannot really put easily a digital bank, because if you do it on-prem, it does take a long time. So in Saudi, they have cloud, but they have most of regulation. Those they get 3 digital banks done a few years back, the license, but no, they are not operational. One of them operational as a new bank only. You have Jordan, 1 new bank. You have Egypt, who have 1 digital bank license only, not operational yet. 1 new bank is operational, and so on. So you can, Bahrain, you have 1 bank, Ela Bank is a new bank as well. Because why? Because it's a bank, fintech company, working with their own bank. It's a brand of ABC, I think, Bahrain. So this is very important. Here I'm putting you as well, according to BCG, digital banking user in MENA are to go to 31 million by 2025. Careful about this word, digital banking. which means people using digital banking and new banks and digital banks. Now this is quickly showing you some success. I told you about Live. Live is a new bank. It's done by Emirates MBD. Done when? 2017. So mashallah, it's really started long time back. And they reached about 400,000 customers. This is a big success for Emirates MBD. The first new bank in the region, in the Gulf, in MENA with Live, done by Emirates MBD. I remember at this time, I know that he's a colleague who made this bank, and people start laughing, oh, why are you making this one now? We don't think it will work. And now, Live, they have more than 500,000 customers. I'm a customer of Live as well. Why? I opened the bank account within 10 minutes. I don't go anywhere by face recognition. I got my account, I'm using straight away. And then we have in Saudi, another very big one in Saudi, STC Pay. And this one is a very big, owned by one of the big telecom operators, STC. But they are still not a digital bank, it's a new bank, as a payment company only, because they didn't go live with the digital banking, because the central bank is very strict for any digital bank to go live till now. And WEU is a very good example in UAE. This went a year and a half. And you know, as I said, we have this one to call new license called community banking license, and they went for SME only. And they got 2,000 to 20,000 SMEs less than a year. Big success story. Tilda is another app in Egypt as well. But let me explain to you. In this Maria, and this is the digital banks in UAE, they are big muscle, not startups, huh? The guys own them, they are big corporate. So even they spend lots of money, not what's happening in the West. So now these digital banks, even the 3 in Saudi, they have big corporate behind them, they have big money behind them. So the model is a little bit different. That's why they have to pay for the license. They have to be well regulated. Now, you know, challenges, I will not just stay here very much. Regulation is a big thing. As I said, you cannot get a digital banking license easily. You have to get money. It's not like, you know, as I said, the moment you move to central bank and you ask for a digital banking license, it does take you a long time and lots of money, and it doesn't let you to go with a digital banking license like this. And then, you know, cybersecurity issue, customer awareness about this trust. The trust is another issue because people never used digital banking before. And then limited product, as we said, you know, small. We need to make sure that they have not only payment, because the payment is great to start with. But if you don't go beyond payment, you don't make money. That's why the bank, the first digital bank, I have this study, but I didn't put it here. Last year, we have 400 plus digital banks globally, digital new banks. How many was doing profit? 4% only. 4.5% out of 400 plus banks globally, they made money, they made profit. The rest was doing, you know, losses. They're still burning cash, burning money. Why? Most of them, they were in payment only. Payment does not make you money. Unless you go for financing and you do other products, you cannot make money only from payment. So, you know, digital identity, like brother talk about Islamic finance and fintech, you know, the Sharia and so on. The problem you face actually, if you are able to identify you as a person digitally, then we are able to sign your contract, murabha contract, ijara, whatever. So the digital identity become a key. We have it in UAE, we have it in Saudi as well. I think here, I think hopefully this is the last. I will not just do it here. Customer-centric, you know, collaboration is the key. And I will come here to the end. This is very important. If you want to go fast, go alone. And if you want to go far, go together. Here, the collaboration is a key when you come to startup. Previously, you used to do everything by yourself. Nowadays, no. You could be like a China, $25 billion bank. You don't have a license. Still, and this is what we need, Islamic finance, Islamic fintechs, and so on. The people are here, which have done a great job. People in the Middle East, people in Malaysia, you have to work together because you can create a bigger ecosystem and so on. And thank you, Pasiba. Sorry for keeping you late, but I hope time is okay. Thanks a lot. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mr. Muhammad. So we have time for questions. Сейчас у нас время для вопросов и ответов. Да, коллеги, сможете, пожалуйста, подойти? С этой стороны у нас тоже очень много вопросов.
Ассаламу алейкум. Мадина Калиму.
Live Consult, the Russian Association on Islamic Finance Expert. Neobanking subject is associated in my mind with innovations. and representatives of Russian banks largely talks about payment cards as a product. If you look at the banks which issued payment and credit cards in Russia, they started in 2010 and then 28, Express Bank in Tatarstan, then regional banks. There are a variety of banks which issue payment banks, and the solutions that are offered do not demonstrate any innovations. Maybe design of the card was the most innovative thing about them. Do you see any steps to give added value in the market for your clients in particular? If we talk about payment cards, we discussed it with your colleagues from Tinkoff. We talked about developing criteria not only for screening on different KPD codes, but for products as well. If you take OCVAD codes, many businesses cannot be screened. They're hidden somewhere in depth, like escort, for example. You cannot identify it. The client, if we want to protect children or ourselves, let's say, many types of activities like red and white. We tested some of the cards. They may be registered and submit their OCVADs not as a store selling alcoholic beverage, but as a foodstuff store. This is an example. We should go further and propose some new technology solution. It's not a big issue. Each person is responsible for what he or she is buying. And what sort of innovations may be ahead of us? What sort of innovations you can propose, or what sort of innovations you consider? Maybe it is a secret abroad. It's a problem how these cards are manufactured, and the banks cannot leave this vicious circle. And I don't think we should implement the products that are well known. I think that Tinkoff clients are waiting for something more challenging from them. Thank you. I will give you a partial answer. It seems that the main innovation is hidden in simplicity. It may sound trivial, but all regulations which is available pushes us to produce sophisticated products. But the biggest innovation is to hide this sophistication from your client so that the client can resolve and satisfy his or her needs in the simplest possible way. Globally, you should produce simple things for people, not something out of the ordinary. Abdurrashid Ustas.
I have gratitude for the contribution to our knowledge for Islamic finance. I would like to ask my question in Russian language.
I would like to ask our speakers regarding the consideration that Islamic finance is not just finance. In simpler words, like a difference between a man and digitalization, that is, that's like compassion and taking care of something. A specific feature of Islamic banking is compassion for the client, taking care of the client. It cannot be transmitted through digital technologies. It cannot be transmitted remotely. In these matters, how you see it? And my second question relates to the size of the margin or of markup, the revenue of the bank. One of the speakers mentioned that we don't have any branches and any outlets, and we cut our operational cost for that. If you reduce your operational costs, does it impact the size of your margin? How things stand with it? And my third question, you mentioned penetration of online usage or internet penetration. It's a major issue, but it raises the risk of cybersecurity. We have several cases where even websites of the governments of the republics are broken by fraudsters. Thank you very much. I think the question is rather to banks or to Russian banks.
There is one I can answer. About because being in technology as well. I think the idea of being passionate, I agree with you, and then moving to totally digital, it removes the personal touch. I think we all want to talk to people. What's happening now globally as well, that there is, it's a bit very interesting. There are some studies that branches might come back, or there is some emphasis on branches again. While I don't know one bank, digital bank, was being set up and launched in UAE, they came with something very interesting, because most of the digital banks, new banks, they have only chat. They don't have call center. So this bank, I really value what they came with, said, okay, we're going to have a call center. So our customer, though they are all digital, but they still can call us if they have a problem. That's one. Two, another bank came with something very interesting, and I think I have seen it in Uzbekistan. I think of another bank in Uzbekistan when I was visiting. I found a branch, and I said, how come this digital bank have a branch? He said, no, it's not a branch. It is, a center for customer to go and you teach them, learn, how to use, and they have an issue, you can talk to someone, like a service center, sorry. So this bank in UAE as well, they came with a service center. So I could see in some malls they have service centers. Everything is digital, but still you can pass by and you have an issue, you can talk to someone. So I think now the beauty here, you should really, it's not, I said it in Arabic, not a Quran. Things are here, is like, you have to be hybrid. You have to see what is the best model and come with a new model which really can help you out and help your customer. You still, get some kind of efficiency and cost and all digital, but still you have the touch with people. So I think these two examples of a call center and service centers are there for some digital banks. I think this is a more winning formula than becoming digital and only chat and then nobody talk to you. Thank you.
I will answer another part of the question about improving the efficiency of your branches and improving your margin. There is a market price, and how you manage your costs versus market price gives you margin. If you manage your costs properly, then you can increase your margin. And another thing, why branches are harmful? Because they restrict your geographic outreach. When you forget about your outlets and branches, you think on the national scale. If you talk about branches, you talk about your regional presence only. For cybersecurity, we have the best specialists on cybersecurity. DDoS attacks continue for 24 hours, and the bigger you are, the more attacks you face. You just should give them. I would like to sincerely thank all speakers for their excellent contributions. My question is to Mr. Muhammad. A special thanks to him for very nice structuring of risks and, let's say, warning about them. People face different situations, clients are different, and it is not clear what color of the vehicle will be preferable for your car, but Ford said you may love any color, but the black color is the best. What is your recommendation? Which jurisdiction is the best for starting a neobank? I understand that my question is not politically correct, but which country you will recommend for starting a neobank?
Or here? Look for, I think, yeah. Both Muhammad.
Okay. Well, thank you for this interesting question. The question is simple, but the answer isn't. Yeah, there is no right or wrong here. To be honest with you, each jurisdiction has its own pros and cons. Each jurisdiction has its own, challenges. There is no perfect jurisdiction in this world. Anywhere, wherever you go, you will have some challenges, that you will be facing. Of course, some jurisdictions are more friendly, if you want, business friendly or whatever. They will be more receptive to new ideas. They will be more receptive, to trying new technologies and stuff. There will be others who will be more traditionalist. So I cannot name a single, jurisdiction as that is, the ideal, and that's where, you go to launch a new Islamic neobank. And also that there may be a jurisdiction, I don't know, maybe, somewhere in Antarctica or somewhere, but probably there are no consumers there. So we have to think of, a balance of things where, everything is, most of your boxes are ticked. So, where there are customers, where there is, market demand, when there is, some political will from, the authorities, and where, there is some supportive and enabling, environment, legal and, environment and the, the industry infrastructure as well. So if in today's world, if you're asking me, which jurisdiction is out of the known world, I will probably say maybe, the UAE and, UK. They seem to be more, I think, receptive to new ideas and to, launching new, institutions. Similarly, in Malaysia and Indonesia, we also see a lot. And that's why when Muhammad Rushdie, he showed us the world landscape of Islamic fintechs and neobanks. The majority of them are actually based in Indonesia, Malaysia, UK, and UAE. So that is why it's not for one reason. It's actually because of these multiple reasons that these jurisdictions are relatively friendlier compared to other jurisdictions. But it does not mean that those jurisdictions, those markets who are not yet friendly, they all can never be. So it's just a mindset that is required, where the authorities and all the stakeholders, including the market players, they think together and they want to create solutions. They want to bring up new alternatives to the markets. They want to give choices to the consumers, and they want to create opportunities for themselves and for the businesses as well. Then any jurisdiction can do that. But again, please remember that it's always best to have the industry standards, as we use Basel III, 2, whatever, and other standards. It's always very important to use IOFI standards as well.
Can I think is another Muhammad, so we can also answer something. I think what brother said is right, and to the point. There is something I need to give an example. You should also look at jurisdiction, which is not a jurisdiction. You have a need for what you are trying to build. I give an example. In UAE and GCC, Bahrain is the best place for all the regulations. Okay, they come very fast. You are very helpful, supportive. But they're a very small market. So people went to Bahrain to try, and even if you get in Bahrain, for example, a license, so what you're going to do? If you want to go to other country which have the need, they will ask you to come here, do again from with us. They wouldn't tell you, okay, you were there, done, then you are here, okay. So the point here, you have to start from there is a need for your business, there's a business case, and then go and work with the regulator to help you out. So, and then it is balance between both, Otherwise, if you have a great thing you are doing somewhere in Europe, for example, you still have to come to any other place to be regulated again. So you have to make sure that there is a business need in where you are. You can do a sandbox trial, a little bit small one for any other jurisdiction, just to make sure that you are acquainted with what required. But at the end of the day, where you're going to set up your business, launch your business, this is where you need to focus. Otherwise, you're going to lose money. Second, you have to make sure the place you're going to launch, your investor will pay as well, because, capital is very important. I have a presentation about Islamic FinTech, which Brother Farouk was referring to. We have also from Islamic FinTech, the maturity, I think the presentation I will share with the organizers, it tells you where is the ones, which is, of course, Malaysia and UAE were in the top. So you need to make sure that you balance between the business case and the regulation as well.
Можно, да, вопрос? Ага.
May I ask a question? Marcel Beck. I'm director of REC Foundation from Kazakhstan. I had some different hopes for this session. I would like to specify my question. My question is to Dr. Farouk Raza about, you here may, let's say, being, let's say, somewhat late in supporting new technologies. Probably you should set up a group of new young scientists which will give a draft new solution which will be discussed then later on. I asked a lot of questions on cryptocurrencies, the blockchain, studying from Sheikh Takhnur Usmani, but have not received any specific answer. My second question is probably to Sheikh Mohammed Rushdie. It is nice to use your cards in a store, but we're talking about the future. What do you think about Islamic fintechs, like starting in Islamic bank in some village?
For a very interesting comment. I wouldn't call it a question, it's more like a comment or an idea. You're absolutely right. We are trying to do that as much as possible. The company that I have founded, called IFAS, you may have seen the logo, Islamic Finance Advisory and Assurance Services. This is an international Islamic finance advisory firm. And we have been blessed actually with the opportunity of working across 63 different jurisdictions, all the way from North America to the Far East, all across CIS region and, Africa, etc. We have actually, done a lot of regulations and, things, for different countries, the governments and so on and so forth. Currently, we are in the process of drafting the Islamic banking law for the government of Uzbekistan. Similarly, we are working with the government of Philippines as well, for helping them to launch Islamic banking in the country and so on. So we have been doing this. And across this 20 years of our journey, because we were exposed to, these challenges, we actually, started thinking of technology and how we can leverage our knowledge in the technology base and make things easier, for everyone. And as a result, 3 fintech companies have actually taken birth from IFAS itself. So IFAS actually has created 3 of fintechs of our own that are operating in different countries now, alhamdulillah. And the next thing that we want to do is to start some sort of academy, that we are thinking of, where we can, or some sort of, an ideas lab where we can bring together, people and invite, the youngsters who are interested in this, who are willing actually to, to ideate, to innovate, and to invest in themselves, as people, and they want some guidance from our side how to make things Sharia compliant, how to launch these new businesses. This is actually one of the ideas that we have, and we are hoping maybe inshallah by 2025 we shall be able to launch that. But thank you. This is something that is needed, and we are working on that.
I agree, brother, what you're saying. I think there is a big need for the unserved segments. I said villages. If I talk about Africa, for example, there is many areas, even rural areas in other countries, which is they really need this one. And these people, they are very much religious people, which is don't do financing because they don't want to do financing. So they need the Islamic finance or Islamic fintech will be a very important thing for them. But just let me explain something. When you look at this segment, you have to make sure also you can scale from this one to another bigger segment, because what we have seen here, I've been in this also journey for quite some time. Yeah, at the end of the day, you will need investors to be with you. And any investor wants to put money, he will put it for the good cause of definitely because of Islamic fintech and so on, but he wants to get a return as well. So you want to make sure that yes, when you are offering here in this rural area in your country, you can multiply this in many places where you have a big mass, and then you have a return for the investor. So you have to work it out this way. Then you are able to get the support from investors. And I think, as you said, the unbanked population is big in the Islamic world, unfortunately. And if you're going to see in my presentation, I showed, I think, the percentage of in the map of the Arab world. You have also the the financial inclusion, which means how many people are having a bank or using banks. You're going to see many countries are really very low. So you need to make sure you go to these places, start working on there and scaling from there, and you are able to get a big buy. Then you are able to get investors to support you as well. Yeah, please.
Excuse me. لو سمحت أظن قد شوي أخطأوا في ترجمة.
اتفضل عربي كويس.
كنت أردت أسأل يعني لو كان
Then Sheikh Zuckerberg, they started Meta. What follows the fact where we are moving? We may start Meta, we may start a digital bank, we may invest Islamic finance there.
I'll tell you, as I said, the first digital bank is being done Ru'ya in UAE, and this we're going to launch soon. And let me explain to you, there was even a project maybe 7-8 years back to have a mega Islamic bank. And this what they wanted to do here, something like a Rashhi, like Kuwait Finance House. This is the two biggest Dubai Islamic Bank. They want to do something like in a city bank or whatever, these global banks. So the idea with there, Sheikh Saleh Kamil, Allah yarhamu, he was one of the people behind this one. Of course, he passed away. But I think there is a need to have this big organization. Two, there is lots of things happening. We have even group in Malaysia, they are doing a fund for Islamic fintech. And this is a great thing. Even in Qatar, the Islamic banking report, which is, I was talking about it in today midday in the other presentation, it is done by support from Qatar Financial Research Center or something. And they are pushing some money or they're making something investment in Islamic fintech. So luckily we have some centers are trying to promote Islamic fintech, to put some spending on it and to make it forward. So I think this is already happening. If you look as well, what happened last week when the paper came, say by now, by later is not Sharia compliant, and people start looking what's happening. And I know some of the founders said, okay, let us go and find ways. So people, the startup now start thinking that the more you become Sharia compliant, the more they have more business. So I think this is also, developing the ecosystem of Islamic fintech. So we are there, we are in the way. Of course, it's not that fast what we think as Muslim with our passion, but I think it's happening. It will take some time. I'll tell you why. Because even the normal fintech does take time to launch. So imagine the Islamic fintech, which you have a smaller part, as I said, midday I talk about Islamic fintech presentation. You should talk about the startup you do in Islamic fintech for everybody, not for Muslims only, because everybody wants a transparency, a better product and better services, better risk, and this you find it all in Islamic fintech. We shouldn't also only sell Islamic fintech for Muslims only. It's as I said, the company Lemonade in USA. I talk about it also midday. This company is a big takaful company, a big insurance company, not takaful in USA. It become a unicorn. These guys, they are putting the Sharia principle exactly. So you need to think about the ecosystem, develop it, and I think it's happening. But I agree with you, it is taking time, but day after day, really, there is more Islamic fintech, there is more money going into the system, and hopefully, inshallah, you will see something, hopefully big soon. Thank you so much. Shukran.
Можно я прям небольшое резюме сделаю по нескольким вопросам, которые...
I will do, by your leave, a wrap-up on some of the questions asked from the floor. There was a question regarding the card, to what extent we want innovations. Everyone something different, something new, but we should not forget that we should be closer to the ground. Some people that think of Islamic loan as a loan free of charge. We're not a bank. I'm not defending banks, but we should, closer to the ground view. Is Sberbank and VTB started with something, with a card, so that people understand that's your left hand, that's the right hand. By your leave, it's not advertising in terms of innovations. We're launching now a platform, communication platform, which will provide a bridge between people who want to invest in the real economy sector and small and medium-sized businesses, a sort of project financing bridge. Any individual, any legal entity can invest in an existing business. It's not a super innovation, but will try to cover some new segments, some new audience. Indeed, any financial Islamic organization has its audience, has its products. They may have been in operation for several years, but we're talking about innovations to the extent that you reach out to new audience. You said, you mentioned a very interesting Meta Universe Bank, but let's put our vehicle on wheels first so that moves forward, and only then we'll think that it will reduce petrol consumption, not 10 but 5 liters per 100 kilometers. Let's start with something, and then we'll think about something different, something, let us say, sky high. We're used to conventional banking, but we are doing something. It's a small step, but it's a step forward. That's the comment. Difference. It's difficult to say goodbye, but we've been working for nearly 3 hours. You are excellent people. I suggest we close our formal part and we switch to the networking session. And from Tochka Bank, we would like to give small presents to all our guests. And we start networking. Thanks to everybody. A round of applause to everyone.